if we're talking like a white girls, I would, in terms of personality, I found myself being more attracted to the European
Oh,
types than to
okay.
the
All right.
American.
Yes. Something
Than the,
sexy about the
like the
European.
typical American, the typical
So
American
what
women.
is it about the European ladies that attract you? Is it? All right, guys, we're here with a special episode of the Rodcast podcast. We are at a special hidden location. It's a hidden gem for those who haven't discovered it yet. It's along Mamay Road. We'll put the details of the exact address of this wonderful spot. It's nice, it's spacious, they have good food, they have great coffee, and it's coffee fragrance. All right, it's definitely an experience that can give you the Korea feel. All right, so if you want to feel like you're at a coffee shop straight out of Korea, then this is the spot here in Davao City, just along Mamay Road, along the Damosa Lanang area. Welcome to this special episode. It's special because I am with somebody who I'm actually related to. How are you, bro?
Great. Great to be here.
So
Great to be here.
For those wondering who I'm with and who my guest is for this afternoon's episode of our podcast, we have a lot in common, not just our growing up experiences, not just our perspective in life back then and now, but also, of course, we're blood related as well. So, RJ, introduce yourself, where you're hailing from, and what line of work you're in.
Yes, my name is Ramon Jacinto, or RJ, Lagtapon. I was born in Bacolod 45 years ago and came to the U.S. when I was 13. Moved there with my family to Chicago specifically. And yes, I have lived there for 32 years.
Most of your life?
Most of my life, yeah. I've also lived in Washington, D.C., Madrid, Spain, and Seattle, Washington.
Yeah.
But
Are you a diplomat?
I wish. I wanted to be a
you
foreign
could
service
be.
officer, man. I
Yeah,
wish.
you
That was
could
one
be.
of my dream jobs.
You could be.
Uh,
But then you would be representing the U.S.,
Yes,
right?
right,
You
right,
wouldn't be
right.
representing
right.
the Philippines
I mean,
anymore.
Obviously, his dad was.
He's very well traveled. I think that's one of those things that we have in common as well. But with him, most of his travel, I guess, was by choice.
Yes.
Whereas with me, I was just tagging along, right? Because I was still a kid and my dad.
Diplomat kid, yeah.
Yeah, so I was just following my dad around. You actually remember the very first day when you arrived in the US, and what were the first things that you noticed that was like made you say to yourself, I'm not in Bacolod anymore?
Yes, very much. So we arrived around May 20th, 1992, around 1:20 p.m. I remember that very well. And at that time, my mom's apartment was just a one-bedroom apartment close to downtown Chicago in the South Loop of Chicago. So, and it had a view of downtown, the skyscrapers, the Chicago skyline. So, that very first day, that first night, I remember having my first dinner. My first dinner in the States, and I remember how quiet it was, how silent. It was just my dad, my mom, me, my younger brother, and younger sister. And it felt so surreal because, okay, in the background, you have this huge Chicago skyline, skyscrapers, lit up. And so it's like a whole new world for me to explore.
The silence was deafening as well,
But
right?
it was
For sure,
silence
yeah.
deafening, yeah. Because we were in our air-conditioned apartment and, high rise. And it was just us five.
Coming from your life in Bacolod,
Bacolod,
which is
where
a lot of people.
Yeah,
Did you live in a compound? Did you live in a traditional?
we lived in
home?
Doña Juliana Heights. It was a subdivision in Bacolod. So, as most of us Filipinos here, it's not just you, your parents. You have your titos, titas, cousins, yayas, drivers.
The cousin of your cousin, the neighbor,
and then your neighbor shows up. Yeah. It's all, it's loud and it's so dense.
Yes.
And now, in the
It's
U.S.
so much space.
So much space. Obviously there's a lot of people,
Yes.
there's more people in the U.S. than here, but each one minds his or her own business,
That's
you know.
true. I think a lot of Filipinos in the U.S. Mainly that's the first thing they notice, especially for those who move to the U.S. At an older stage in their lives. Like maybe they're professionals already. Like maybe you're a nurse, you get employment there, so you move to the U.S. Whereas with us, we were kids. You know, we
Yeah.
were kids. We were dependent on our parents. We were
Right.
just sort of, we were thrown in there. But personally, with my experience, I think it's much easier for you to adapt and adjust. In the sense of like, your norms, your traits, your, I guess, habits are not carved in stone yet.
Right.
You're still flexible
Right.
when you're a kid.
Correct.
Whereas
Very
if you
much
go
so.
there as an adult, you're set in your ways already.
Yeah.
I mean, just the food alone, like how Filipinos,
Mm-hmm.
when they go there, they're looking for Jollibee, they're looking for
Rice every
the
day.
Asian store. That's something that I didn't really
Yeah.
crave for when I
Yeah.
moved to the US as a kid. When you started school, what was the hardest thing? What was the first thing that you had to adjust to? Coming from, obviously, I'm assuming in Bacolod, you were some sort of a hotshot, right? Because I mean, Filipinos, we're Filipinos in the Philippines. Every Filipino has a friend.
Yeah.
Every Filipino, there's no like, oh, he has no friend, he's whatever. In the US, it's not that easy
Yeah.
to blend in. It's not that easy to be popular. You have to be like an athlete, you have to be a jock, you have to be a football player, I don't want to say you have to be Caucasian or you have to be whatever, but it depends on the neighborhood and the school district.
That's
that you're a
true.
part
That's
of.
true. Yeah.
So what was the initial adjustment for you when you enrolled in school? Because this is not, the Philippines anymore.
Yeah, because I had no expectations. I'm the oldest of three, so in a way, I was the guinea pig. I was the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah, the experimental.
Yeah. So
child.
at least my younger sister and brother, they had me as oh, okay, yeah, kuya, okay, now I get it. I know what to do, what not to do. But for me, it was all new. So I did have a second cousin at this high school that I started, but he was in a different class. But just
You went to public school, right?
both private and public. So my
Social.
my first 2 years was in De La Salle Institute, private all boys school in Chicago.
Holy cow.
Yeah, close to where the White Sox play, the Sox Stadium.
Was that by, like, why?
Because first 2 years we lived in the city. So
okay, got it.
for Filipinos usually, if you can't afford to, you don't want to send your kids to inner city public schools.
Yes.
Because
That's different. It's
Yeah.
not the suburbs.
it's there.
And of course, coming from Bacolod, you also attended private school.
Private school,
right?
correct.
So,
Also La Salle and Bacolod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wow.
So I had the experiences of both, all boys Catholic private school, and then that was for freshman, sophomore years, and then junior, senior years in a public school in the suburbs.
Okay. Which schooling did you enjoy more?
Socially, the public school.
The public school, right?
Socially, yeah.
I mean, the freedom. You can wear anything. You can wear shorts to
I
school.
I was shocked because in the private school we had to wear a shirt and a tie, a uniform essentially.
Yeah.
And then my first day in a public school, this was like last week of August, first day. So it's still kind of warm, and I was shocked because I was like, I didn't know girls could wear Daisy Dukes.
Oh yeah,
Daisy Dukes to
Daisy
school.
Dukes are like the super,
Like shorts,
almost underwear like shorts.
like shorts, and I'm like, and I see this girl. Some of them are like sitting in front of me, and I'm like, this is the first time,
Oh, now this is America. You know what I'm saying?
Because if you even here, in whether it's public or
Yeah,
private school,
yeah.
girls have to wear skirts below the
Yes,
knee, right?
Yes.
Over there, I'm like, wow.
Yes.
I'm like, am I in the beach
I
or
mean,
something?
they don't even have to wear bras, I think. I'm not sure, but I mean, I wasn't that attentive at the time. But yeah, I mean, I can't compare because we always thought that kids who went to private schools in the States were like super duper uber rich and privileged, or they're like kids who like to cause trouble because that's the threat that you get from your parents.
Yeah.
You're naughty, I'll send you to military school. Right? And military
Yeah.
school is sort of like a private school, right? Where
Yeah.
it's more controlled, you have a uniform and everything's like, very rigid and orderly, whereas with public school, it's like wear what you want, be the individual that you are.
Yes, very
I mean, I
much
would
so.
bring my skateboard to school. Like I had friends who grew their hair this way, and we didn't have piercings and tattoos obviously at the time because in the U.S. at the time you had to be 18 or above to get piercings and tattoos. So I was still in high school, but
Yeah.
for me it wasn't really a major adjustment because when I was here in the Philippines, I was attending public school. So I was always a product of public school. I don't know what the similarity is of public school in the Philippines and public school in the US, but I would assume that, it's obviously if you're from a private school in the Philippines, the mindset of your parents would be like, oh, I'm not sending my kid to public school because, he went to private school in the Philippines. He's accustomed to the private school setting. And most Filipinos, probably when they move to the US, they would assume that the private school, public school difference or setup is similar to the private school, public school setup in the Philippines.
And
Whereas
it's not.
it's
It's
not.
not.
Because here in the Philippines, like, private school kids come from middle-class families.
Yeah.
They're not really from affluent families. In the States, that's a very, very exclusive thing.
Yeah.
I don't even recall if I made friends with anybody who went to private school in the States, except for you.
Well, so ironically, I actually experienced more bullying in my school in the Philippines than when.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, you being
But
a
I was just
Bacolod
shy,
boy?
huh?
You being a Bacolod boy? Like, I'm assuming you're like the Prince of Bacolod back then.
Everyone is an haciendero in Bacolod.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Yeah, okay. I get it. That's true.
Yeah, but I was a shy kid. I was a very shy kid. But of course there's that pressure to fit in. So the U.S. your typical American school lunchroom is very segregated. The kids segregate themselves. So the black kids would sit by themselves, the Hispanic kids, and then
really?
and then the white kids. Yes.
Okay, when you enrolled in the U.S. for the private school, did they check your grades? Because when I enrolled for public school,
Yeah.
I was actually considered first to be enrolled in an ESL class, which is English as a second language.
Yes.
So that's
Yes.
where the kids would just move to the U.S. The Koreans and
Yeah,
speak
because
English.
they think that you don't speak
You don't speak
English
English
that
because
well.
you're a foreign student, right?
Right.
And when the assistant principal interviewed me, he's like, "No, you speak perfect English.
Yeah.
So you don't need to attend
Right,
ESL."
right.
So because if I attended ESL, then I would have been, in a class where we were taught basic English. And another thing, when the assistant principal reviewed my report card, you know how in the U.S. if you get like a 75, that's a C. In the Philippines, that's like borderline failure already,
exactly,
right?
yes.
Because F in the States is 65, at least back then, during the 80s. 65 was like an F. Like 75 was like a C.
Like
so
there's
that was average.
D. There's a D.
Yeah, there's a D. That's about
There's a D,
70, whatever.
Yeah.
But my grades were like 90, 90. So the assistant principal was like, "Oh my God, you're brilliant." I'm like, dude, that's the normal grade in the Philippines. All the kids there aim for grades like that.
Yeah.
So, because in the States, like I said, if you're a C student, you're average. So even if you were getting 75s on your report card here in the Philippines, in the States, that's not failure. That's like
that's
an
not
average student.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, it's perfectly
Right?
passing. Yeah.
So when they were looking at my report card, they thought I was like some genius or something. I'm like, no, I'm not. It's just in the Philippines, the standards of grades here is very high.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Right.
Especially, like the math, for example, the math here in the Philippines and in Asia in general is more advanced than the elementary and high school
Everything's
math
more
in the U.S.
Yeah.
Until you reach college, obviously.
Then it's more specialized.
The college course offerings in the States are much broader. For me, it was kind of bittersweet because precisely because I experienced both public and private schools, my high school was split down the middle.
Yes.
So, just around the same time that I was establishing friendships during my sophomore year, I was pulled out because we moved to a different neighborhood, the suburbs, and here I am. Okay, totally new school, new people.
Different kids, yeah.
So it was split. So I never really established very close high school friendships.
That's tough.
For the
I went through something like that as well because
Yeah.
my senior year, which is the worst time or part of your high school year to move to another school, I had to move and live with my aunt in Boston, in Massachusetts, my senior year, where you have the senior prank and you have the homecoming queen, all that stuff. It's like that's the year where you're the god at school. You're the senior. You pick on the freshmen, right? So I had to move. But my first 3 years, I was in the same school. And the cool thing was when we moved to the U.S., I was actually there for 7th and 8th grade. So I went through intermediate. So my friends that I went to school with for 7th and 8th grade, most of them also went to the same high school as I did. So when I was a freshman, I wasn't really like a freshman in a new school because I already was in school with the same kids that I went to my previous school with, the intermediate school.
right.
Whereas with you, it was directly high school, right?
Yeah,
Because you were already
was straight,
13.
yeah.
Yeah, because you were 13. So I still went through 7th and 8th grade. And then when I moved to high school, I already had a couple of friends. And then the 3 years until my junior year, my dad's posting ended. So he had to come back to the Philippines. And they were like, just stay in the U.S. and finish your high school. And my mom's sister, based in the U.S., lived in Massachusetts. So I moved in with her. She took me in. She's not married. She doesn't have kids. She took me in. I was like her kid. And I finished my high school there. And I had to adapt and adjust in a new, not only a new city, not only a new town, but a new school for my senior year. I was supposed to go to high school or my senior year, spend my senior year in high school in North Hollywood. And I'm telling you, dude, adjusting from the East Coast to the West Coast is crazy, especially back then.
Yeah.
This was the time when Boys in the Hood came out in the theaters. We're talking gangs here. We're talking like, you know, like legit gangs. Like, even Filipinos had gangs back then. And I didn't want a part of any of that because I did not experience that in the East Coast. We never had drive-by shootings, gangbang.
I mean, you were Northern Virginia, right?
Yes, Virginia.
Yeah, that's like affluent area. You know, that's pretty.
It's suburban. Yeah, pretty
yeah.
much like maybe in Chicago if you're in the suburbs. It's the same environment. I mean, like I said, so my transition from being in Virginia to Massachusetts, it's not so bad. It's like New England is very similar to like Virginia. Those states.
That's like that's like the old America, the original 13 states, East Coast. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So no big adjustment for me, as compared to like if I had transferred to LA, especially me looking like a Chicano. You know, I would have gotten picked on. I would have probably been recruited to a gang, or I would have been. I guess, a casualty of war or gang war for that matter. So I did not experience that. So I was thankful that I ended up finishing my high school year, even though it was a different school. That I didn't have to move to the West Coast, especially at the time when it was the height of the gangs and stuff.
What year did you graduate?
1992.
Okay. Oh,
1992.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm class of 1992 in high school.
I'm class of 96.
For me, my experience of the dating scene in the States was like, it's not a boyfriend-girlfriend setup. It's more of like, we're going out.
Yeah.
So going out means you watch movies together, you hang out at each other's house, you know, hanky-panky, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not like a commitment, right? Like, I could be going out with this girl this week, but next week I could be going out with
Right. Exactly.
Right?
There's no like,
There's
here's
no
like,
commitment.
tayo na ba?
Yeah. That's a very Filipino thing.
It's very Filipino,
Like in the Philippines, like you have
yeah.
a girlfriend here that's like serious. Like it's like you're almost getting married already. Like you have to go through this courtship hoopla.
Yeah.
Just
So I didn't go through that here. I mean, obviously, you know, like I said, I was shy. I mean, when it came to girls, my younger brother had much more success than me.
He was busier.
yeah. But of course, you know, I experienced it. I was there.
Yeah, shout out to your bro.
Hey, Ron.
Kuya putting up a good word for you, huh?
Yeah, and but yeah, I remember because I was with some Filipino friends, like a family friend, and of course this was back before social media, internet.
Yeah.
You exchange photos.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So pictures. So I had a couple of girl photos in my wallet, and so my Filipino friend's younger sister was looking at my wallet. You know, we were fairly close again, family friends. So, and she was like, "What's with these white girls?"
Yeah. Why are they all white?
Well, you know, I mean, we live in America, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, there's in the States, there's aside from the pressure to fit in, it is still there's still that. I mean, it's not legal segregation, but there's still that
there is.
that racially.
Yes.
It's still I won't say a racist country, but it's still a like racially
stereotypes profiling. Like
it's still a racially minded country.
Yes.
Yeah, we're like you watch the news, they would say, oh, percentage of whites are this, percentage of blacks, Hispanic, Latinos, Asian. Yeah, there's still that.
That's true.
Where you are grouped.
That's true.
You're an Asian American.
Yeah.
You're a Mexican American.
Yes.
And even within those bigger groups, there's like there's even discrimination. Like if you're fresh off the boat.
Oh yeah. Even amongst Filipinos.
Yeah, versus if you're a Filipino born and bred over there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it in parties.
Same here.
The fresh off the boat Filipinos are in one corner, and then the Filipinos born and raised in the States are in the other corner, and they don't
They don't.
They don't really
don't.
mingle.
No,
yeah,
no, they
yeah,
don't.
yeah, yeah.
And you can tell because like the ones who are like the newly arrived Filipinos, they still speak in Tagalog.
Yeah, yeah.
They're still
Just-
their fashion sense
yeah,
is
yeah.
different.
Just the sense of humor alone.
Yes.
They can't relate.
You can't relate. I felt this when I went on vacation in LA. My sister got married there, but you know her and her husband, they were both based in Virginia, but they got married in California because that's where my brother-in-law's dad was based, and I met my relatives there in LA. Some of them from the Valley. So the Filipinos in the West Coast in LA are so different from the Filipinos the East Coast.
Yes.
The Filipinos in the East Coast are very American. They're more reserved. They're more kind of like very, I would say, more subtle in their ways. Whereas when you go to LA, it's like the Filipinos there don't make any adjustments at all. Like they don't even exert any effort that they're in the US already. Like, at the time, I don't know if you know Andrew E, the rapper
Oh, yeah,
guy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes.
My cousins there were listening to Andrew E. You know, binibiro, humarap ka ng pangit and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
I never heard of any of that when I was
Yeah.
in Virginia.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know
Right.
that guy exists, right? It felt like I was in the
Yeah.
Philippines.
There's more. There's more. Yeah. Unless you're in like New Jersey.
That's very Filipino also. Well, maybe
There's a
recently, but back then, even?
yeah, there's a part of New Jersey where all the Filipinos who are, well, a lot of them are TNTs, for example.
Okay.
There's that part.
Yeah.
In the
And
there's
it's like a common knowledge thing.
right. So there's that, but there's certain neighborhoods in Jersey City, for example, where lots of Filipinos, but it's a different. But it's a different culture from the West Coast, where everyone, because in the West Coast you have to drive, you have to
Yes.
have a car, you have to drive.
Yeah.
In New York, New Jersey,
can
everybody
commute.
takes the train
Yeah.
or the bus.
Yeah.
So you know, it's a different it's subculture, a different Filipino American subculture.
But still very Filipino in their ways.
Yes, that part of New Jersey. Yeah, there's that part of New Jersey, New York. Yeah.
For me, it's like, because like I said, when I went there, I grew up, you know, in Virginia, and we didn't really, I wasn't exposed to video keys. I wasn't exposed to Filipino parties. So when I went to LA and I hung out with my cousins there, and I met my relatives there, and I met, you know, Filipinos there, I'm like, they exerted no effort at all to sort of blend in
Yeah.
with America. I remember like a party happening at my grandfather's house, and you know, my uncles were like playing loud music, and I think some of the neighbors were complaining already, and they didn't even care. They're like, yeah, tawagin yung police. You know, and they were speaking in Tagalog.
Right,
you know,
right,
they weren't
right.
speaking in English.
Was this NorCal or SoCal?
This is the Valley.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah, so they were very Filipino in their ways. Whereas with me, when we moved to Virginia, it was like my neighbors were all white. The kids I was playing with in the snow were white. So I was like, I had to speak like them. When I would go to their house, they're very private. They're very kind of, you know. So I had to sort of find my way, and you know, I couldn't practice my Filipino ways at home in the home of an American friend, because
Yeah, that's right.
you can't just go in there and eat their food.
Yeah.
You can't just go in there and, you know, assume that they will feed you or they will entertain you.
Yeah, they'll offer you a drink. That's probably
That's
it.
probably it. I mean, you have to be welcomed in first,
Yeah.
you know. Whereas, like I said, with a Filipino, it's like, oh yeah, you want to sleep over? Go in.
Yeah.
Dito ka na tumira.
There's that part of American culture where you have to be friendly on the outside. You know,
Yes.
Americans are they smile a lot.
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
Yes.
Hi, good to
I'm
see
good.
you.
I'm
Yeah,
good.
I'm
I
good.
mean, even if you go to Target or Walmart,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Even
yes.
the cashier will
Yes.
like, oh, how are you? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm good.
Big smile, you know.
But that's it.
But exactly,
You're not-
exactly. It's you know, it's a facade. You
It's
know,
a facade.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't trust very easily there. You know, like unlike in the not in the Philippines, but unlike Filipinos in the U.S., where like if you're somebody speaking in Tagalog, o taga saan kayo? O taga ano? Okay.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're related.
And again, to go back to what we mentioned earlier about that silence, again, East Coast or Midwest, you know,
Quiet.
It could be. America is huge. It has all that opportunities, you know, for jobs and for finances and all that. But it could be lonely. Yeah,
Very.
It could be very lonely.
Very lonely.
Yeah.
That's why I think, I don't think, I would say I know that the younger you are when you go to the US, it's easier for you to adapt, I guess, like mental wise, you know, like in terms of your mental health, because like I said, you're not super set in your ways yet. So you just roll with the punches and you adapt and you get used to it. Because for me, when I moved to the US, I wasn't, used to gathering with the barkada yet. I wasn't
Yeah.
used to, how Filipinos are. We socialize with everyone.
Yep.
I was very sort of sheltered still. I grew up with my lola and I stayed at home. I wasn't. But if I moved to the US where I was already like maybe a teenager or I was already working or maybe almost an adult already, then I would have gotten used to life here where there's always somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
There's always somebody to go somewhere with. And it's not about money. It's not about, it's like you have friends, whether you're rich or you're poor.
Right.
You know, you can just go to the sari-sari store and have a conversation with the person manning the store. In the US, it's not like that. You don't just walk up to people and start conversations and talk about your life with them.
Or if you do, it's superficial.
It
like
is.
at the store, you talk about the weather or who won the game last night, things like that. But
Yes.
when it comes to personal stuff, it takes a while. It takes a while.
And they get paranoid, actually. If you start to pry too much, or you start talking about other people, they would be like, that's none of your business.
Yep,
right?
that's true.
I mean, just look at your I have Facebook friends, and I have Facebook friends who were my friends in high school in the States, and I have Facebook friends who are my college friends here. And you compare their Facebook profiles to my friends in the US, like with the Filipino Facebook friends, you know where they ate this morning.
Yes.
You know who they're with. You know what they're doing at this moment. You're updated.
Yeah.
With my American friends or US-based friends that I grew up with there, they don't even have a profile pic.
Yeah.
They don't even have a profile pic. They have like 20 friends. And those are people they really know.
Yeah.
But your Filipino friends are like 3,000 friends or 3,000 followers.
I
I'm
know.
like, who the heck knows
I know,
3,000 people?
You just add
I mean, I have
anyone.
3,000 friends on Facebook. How many do you have
Oh,
on Facebook?
again, because I'm like kind of in between. I'm like I'm
Let's see how
American.
Filipino or American you are.
Should I check or?
Is it like in the thousands already?
No.
Okay, so you're still American.
My wife probably does, but not me.
You're American.
Yeah.
I'm very Filipino. I mean, I have, like I said, like 3,000 friends. Let's approve. And it's so funny because my mom and my aunt would always, because they're both based in the US, and my mom and my aunt, especially my aunt, would always be like, hey, be careful with what you share on social media.
Right.
Identity theft and all that stuff. I'm like, I don't think people will pick on me as, if they were to pick on somebody, whatever, but it happens.
Yeah.
And Americans have that fear.
Yeah, you don't want to share too much of your personal beliefs, for example, online, because what if your employer sees that? Or you go to a job interview and they
They don't
see.
think about that.
Yeah.
Filipinos don't think. Filipinos are like, if they have a quarrel with their significant other, salbahe ka, lumayas, they'll post it. Like,
Yes.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I've seen that with my cousins.
That's
yeah.
personal.
Yeah.
Like, people owe them money, magbayad ka na. I'm like, that's kind of private, right? That's not something that you should be sharing for the whole world to see. But
very true.
because in the US, that's a no-no.
Yeah.
Like you have to be pretty crazy to be posting stuff like that. But in the Philippines, it's very normal, and people don't mind it. Like we don't make a big deal of it. It's not. We're so used to people just broadcasting everything, and when you live in the States, you realize that stuff like that people really don't care about.
Just in terms of family, the idea of family. So in America, for example, I mean, just currently with the current upcoming election, the typical white liberal American woman is as a group, they could tip this election, because they're very independent minded. It's very career minded.
Yes.
Yeah, career.
Yes.
And a lot of them, for example,
Have no need for men
right? They've chosen career
over men.
over
Relationship,
marriage, and kids, for example. Like
self-love, a lot of self-love.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, and whether they're happy with that or they've regretted it, maybe it's a mix of both. But yeah, it's there. So much so that in fact, as I because I lived in Spain as well for a year, if we're talking like a white girls, I would, in terms of personality, I found myself being more attracted to the European
Oh, okay.
To the
All right.
American.
Yes. Something
Than the,
sexy about
the
European.
typical American, the typical American.
So what
woman.
what is it about the European ladies that attract you? Is it because
Oh,
of their,
more feminine.
more feminine?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Just like
They're more like there's more a lot of more traditional traits and
yeah. Even just I mean, and not to diss on American women, but there's in general your women from Asia, Europe, Latin America are much more feminine,
family oriented,
body language.
Yeah.
Much more ladylike than your typical
American, Western woman.
modern American woman.
All right. Well, thanks guys
Yeah.
for hanging with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And again, whatever it is that we discussed, take it with a grain of salt. This mostly it's our opinion from our perspective. It's not a fact.
Yep.
Whatever we're saying is not the end all be all of things, right? You go to the States and experience it for yourself. We're just a couple of guys who spent our childhood in the U.S. and obviously grew up in a Filipino home, so we see things from a somewhat unique perspective, right? Because like I said, most Filipinos who go to the U.S., they're adults and working already.
Yeah.
And some who are in the U.S. were born and raised
Born
there.
and raised there.
We're both.
Yeah. So yeah. Young enough to be Americanized, but old enough not to forget my roots here.
Perfect. All right. So on that note, we're ending this episode, and of course, again, check out Coffee Fragrance. They have great food here. They have good coffee, and they have Wi-Fi too. So they do have that online connection. And if you want a hub where it's away from the hustle and bustle of the usual coffee shops, this is the perfect spot. All right. So my name's Rod Rodriguez,
RJ Lactapon.
and we're out.